What up everybody, my name is Elliott and behind me is my 1993 M35A3, and in this video we're going to be changing out the transmission fluid. The reason why I need to change out the transmission fluid is because I went off-roading the annual off-roading military event here in California with a bunch of military trucks, super fun, and I was doing a hill climb. I will insert the video right now.
Oh no, that's Elliott.
And as I was doing that hill climb, my transmission temperature went all the way up to 325 degrees. 325 degrees. It's not supposed to go above 225 degrees according to the manual. My theory is that the transmission fluid is completely trashed. I've owned this truck for approximately 6 years. I've never changed out the transmission fluid. I'm gonna start with that. Okay, inside the cabin here on the passenger side, you have the transmission filler right here. This is the dipstick. For the transmission fluid, I went with this guy. This is full synthetic ATF Dextron VI multi-vehicle transmission fluid. And I got this from Lowe's. It was $100, 5 gallons. Well, I am underneath the truck and I can't make this up. The drain plug was loose. I can't make this up. Oh my goodness. So here's the transmission. Here's my drain plug, 9/16. And you see that? Can't make that up. Wasn't even tight. Wow. It was barely finger tight. I am super lucky. All right, let's back up here. I'm gonna drain the transmission fluid. I don't wanna get covered in transmission fluid. And I hope there's more than that. Okay, so here we are 10 minutes later, fully drained. There was a little bit of metal on the tip, but honestly nothing too bad. I would say pretty good considering I drove, well, I've put probably over 4,000 miles on this truck, so I'd say that was pretty good. All right, let me put this in here. One more snug pull. All right, that's tight. Not finger tight like how it was, which blows my mind. I've never checked it before, so like how long was that finger tight? Like 1,000 miles? Crazy. Anyways, all right, next we add new fluid. I got the 5-gallon bucket here of new transmission fluid. I actually forgot I had this little fancy thing. This will be the first time I get to use this. So let's shove that down in there. And let's give this a go. All right, here we go. Let's see if this works. No way. Oh my goodness. That just made my life so much easier. Ha! What a fantastic purchase. I guess we'll just let this go for a couple minutes. Okay. All right, cool. Now that I got the transmission fluid topped off, I'm gonna go drive her for about, I don't know, 10 miles, and I will drain it and do it all over again, probably 3 more times, because as you saw, that fluid was brown, and the transmission fluid that I'm putting in is red. Now, I don't know if that was transmission fluid. It might have been the 1545 or some other fluid that the military used to put in the transmissions, but now I know, and so do you, now we know that the transmission fluid is supposed to look red. So I'm gonna drive it so it mixes around, drain it, fill it up, mix it around, drain it again, and then on that last drain, so the 3rd time, I will go ahead and drop the transmission pan and change out the filter that's inside the transmission pan, and then top it off with some better transmission fluid than what I got from Lowe's. Not that it's bad, but I wanna put something better in there, maybe like Valvoline. Well, it is a couple days later. I've driven the truck for over 2 hours. So let's repeat the process, drain it and top it off again. Okay, with us under the truck, let's take another look at this drain plug. Beautiful. It's not leaking, bone dry. Amazing what happens when a drain plug is actually tight. I still can't believe that I did that entire off-roading military trip, camping trip. It was like 300 miles with a loose transmission drain plug. So glad that it didn't fall out. All right, looking better. Looking a lot better. If you guys can tell, it actually has a red color to it now, which is great. It means it's mixing. So we'll let that all drain out and I'll add some more. That. I will turn you guys around. It's pretty much the exact same setup as we did before. We got the fancy electric pump, got our new fluid, pumping it in to the top of the transmission where the dipstick goes, and we will check the dipstick about every minute and a half or so. Let's check the fluid level. Right on the money where it says cold. So we will run up the truck, drive it around a little bit through the gears, and measure it again. Just drove the truck around for a little bit. The transmission level is right on the money. So the next step is going to be putting some more time on it, either another 2 hours or 40 miles or so. I'll check to see what the fluid looks like, and then my plan is to drop the transmission pan entirely and change out that filter that sits inside of there. And I will definitely show you guys how to do that. I noticed there's not a lot of YouTube videos on M35A3s. There's plenty of them on the A2 editions, but not so much the A3s. So I'm hoping to, I don't know, contribute to the community and help whoever in the future may or may not purchase an A3. Or if anything, just provide some entertainment. We will cut to the next step in this video. Okay, so we are at the hangar where I can do some work out of the sunlight. I'm gonna drain the fluid now and hopefully drop that transmission pan. Now that the transmission is mostly done being drained, let's loosen this guy. Now that we got the transmission filler neck removed from the transmission pan, I can now remove all of these bolts holding in the pan. Might be able to just get to it. That was nice. Whew. Okay. So the transmission pan should come off now. So what's happening is I have the transmission pan tilted to try to get the remaining, there's a lot of fluid left here in this pan. So if I can drain out as much as I can before I lower it down, I'm least likely to spill and get it all over myself. So we'll see how this goes. Okay, let's lower the transmission pan and see how this goes. Yep, I got all the bolts out except for 2. All right, 1 left. Here we go. Uh-oh. Stuck on something. That's not good. Come on. Is it this it's this bracket, isn't it? Oh. Am I gonna have to remove that? All right. I'm gonna have to remove that. Let's get this. Let's get a bolt back in here. Okay. Stable for now. Get 1 more in here. Okay. All right, we got 3 bolts back in the transmission pan, and now I'm going to try to remove this bracket. Do I get the right tool here, or do I just try to pop it off? Oh, there we go. Wow. Okay, that's off. Oh, there we go. Okay, now I can drop the transmission pan and hopefully not get covered in fluid. Still a good amount of fluid in this thing. It's a little heavy. Okay. Well, I didn't think about this. We'll move this drive shaft. I can move this line out of the way. Or try to tilt. There we go. All right. Sick. Get you guys turned around here so you see what I'm looking at. There we go. We got our internals of the transmission pan. And that is our filter right here. Or at least the solenoid pack. Actually looks really clean in here. So I am really happy with that. Even up in there in that little inspection panel where the gears are, that looks really good. So I like what I'm seeing here. But I'm not liking the fact that my transmission, the transmission is still overheating. I was a red light on the way here to the airport and it was overheating. It was like 250 degrees. So I'm not liking that, but I am liking how this looks, but not my overheating issue. I'm hoping this filter's clogged. All right, I'm gonna yank this filter out now. Ew. Okay. Whoops. All right. Made a mess. Well, I made a little bit of a mess. That was most likely inevitable, but pretty good, all things considered. Let's get this filter on the bench and we can get a better look at it. Okay, we got the transmission filter out. And I mean, judging just from looking at it, I can't tell much of what's going on. Now there is a filter element in here. Let's see if we can get a good view at what's going on in here. There's a little bit of debris, but not much. It's really not bad. Let me go get my magnet. Okay, I got the iPhone out because the iPhone just does a little bit better on the zoom in. You can really see all the little bits and pieces of metal that was in there, but nothing crazy. Let's come over here, get you guys a good look in here. See just little bits and pieces, metal in here. Nothing catastrophic. Got the transmission pan all cleaned up. Got the new filter, so there actually is a difference. There's the new filter screen. You can see the mesh. You can see that the mesh is a little sludgy, but not too bad. Nothing too bad, right? But there is a slight difference. There's also one more thing that I want to try on top of replacing the transmission filter, and here we have the transmission cooler. Now the transmission cooler sits right up in here, and there are a couple bent fins. I don't think these bent fins are anything necessarily to worry about, but I want to try to blow it out. Maybe disconnect the line and see if I can get some air flowing through this thing. I want to know what's going on with this transmission cooler. Out that I actually have a transmission filter for the fluid. Get you guys under here. So I traced the lines, and supposedly it's this guy right here. So that is my transmission filter. Debating if I want to pull that off right now just to take a look at the inside and then put it back on, because I don't have a new one to put on there right now, so I'll have to order a new one. But in the meantime, I'm going to finish up the transmission, so we'll cut to me and putting on the new filter and button up the transmission pan and topping it up back off with fluid. If that doesn't fix the problem at all, then something up here is probably the issue. I just want to figure this out. I don't want my transmission overheating. You know how expensive these transmissions are? No joke. And I don't have the equipment to lower Allison transmission and put one back up. That's a big job. I got the transmission filter mounted to the bottom of the transmission, and this I am going to torque. I've never had anything come loose with 18 foot-pounds before when it comes to these, this range of bolts or nuts, so that's what I'm gonna do it to, is 18 foot-pounds. Okay, that is 18 foot-pounds. Now it's time to get the transmission pan up in here with the new gasket. So I guess we'll do that. And I made a decision. Can you guys even see me? Let me come down a little bit. I don't even know if you guys can see me. I made a decision here to do no RTV on this. There was no RTV when it came off. It wasn't leaking too bad, so I'm not gonna put any RTV sealant on the new cork gasket. I know, crazy, right? But hey, if it held up for the 6 years that I've owned this vehicle, and I know the guy before me didn't do it, so it's held up for quite some time. You can do what you want on your truck. I'm gonna snug everything up with my snap-on drill set to a 7. We'll go all the way around, and then I'll come back and torque everything up. And I will try to look up the spec for that. Okay, maybe we won't do a 7. That was insane. After a little bit of research online, I found that it's anywhere from 12 foot-pounds to 15 foot-pounds for the oil pan bolts. So I'm gonna do 100 inch-pounds all the way around, and then I'll go up to 145 inch-pounds, since that's what I have is an inch-pound torque wrench here. My foot-pound torque wrench doesn't go down to 10 to 15 foot-pounds. So I'm gonna use my inch one. Okay, after some further thought, I think I'm just gonna leave them at 100 inch-pounds. I went all the way around multiple times, and each time it clicked a little bit more, which is pretty normal because you're tightening down the gasket, but I have a feeling that this torque wrench that I have is not quite on the specs, so we'll see how she holds up. So I've already tightened up the transmission fill dipstick tube right there, and just so you guys see on camera, this time I will indeed torque my drain bolt here to 18 foot-pounds. Hear that? There we go, 18 foot-pounds. She ain't coming loose. Next, I still got to get the bracket up back on, so we'll do that right now. There we go. There we go. There's 100 inch-pounds, 100 inch-pounds, 100 inch-pounds, 100 inch-pounds, 100. Cool. That's all good to go. That's tight. Bracket's on. Transmission pan is what it is. A little bit of rust. We are tight here. Tight on the drain plug. All of our transmission pan bolts are torqued. We are good here on the shift linkage. And I think that means we are ready to put transmission fluid in this thing. So let's do it. It just so happens that the fluid I drained out is pretty much the exact same height as the new fluid I have in that bucket. I don't know if you guys can see, but they are dang near identical. I think this one is 1/4 of an inch higher. So that makes measuring super easy. All right, here we go. Hard for you guys to tell, but filling up the transmission. Got the transmission all filled up with fluid. Let's fire this thing up. And I'll do a little test drive around the airport and get that transmission temperature up. Let this be a lesson for everybody. The transmission is pressurized. So I just did a little test drive, maybe about a half mile, and I didn't tighten the transmission dipstick all the way. And when I rolled up back to the hangar, I noticed a puddle of transmission fluid. And it turns out that it was spewing out of the dipstick all over the underside of the truck. So I just had to rinse the whole underside of the truck and get this transmission fluid up and off. I mean, it was everywhere. Transmission fluid just everywhere, all over the drive shaft, spinning, slinging it all over the place. If any of you are watching who also own an M35A3, note to self, when you go to do your test drive after topping off the transmission fluid or whatever you're doing, make sure it's all the way tight because it will blow fluid everywhere. Glad I did a little test drive. Now let's do an actual drive and see what the transmission temperatures are like. Just got back from a successful test drive. I think this might have done the trick. It did not budge over 200 degrees, which is beautiful, right where it should be. So The real test will be up a super steep hill on the way for me to get home, but everything's looking great, and we'll touch base again when I get home. All right, I don't know if you guys can hear me, but we're going up the hill. We're at 30 miles an hour. Here's my transmission fluid so far. So far, so good. Let's see what it is when we get to the top. Well, made it home. As you guys saw, the hottest my transmission got was 200 degrees, which is better than it was. It was getting over 200 degrees, and that was only on the uphill. The rest of the entire trip, the transmission was sitting right at 175 degrees, which I'm pretty sure is normal operating temperature. Beforehand, it was getting up into the 220, 230 degree temperature range. So that pretty much wraps up this video. I'm gonna keep driving the truck around for the next couple days and see what the transmission fluid temperature sits at. I'll also change out that filter down there. If you do have an M35A3 like myself, I hope this video was of some use to you. If not, it was entertainment, and I'm more than happy to contribute to the military truck or military vehicle community, I should say. Anyways, thank you everybody for watching. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.